going practices. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Priyapatra, we can hear you.
Oh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Krishna Mukherjee from ETH, welcoming you to this ET session, migrate from legacy ERP to cloud successfully, powered by AISPL and PeopleStrong. Enterprises have relied on ERP systems to manage their people's data for a long time. Cloud-based HRMS software have found acceptance in the last decade, and more organizations are now making the move for advanced features, digitization of HR processes, and elevated employee experiences. However, for most of the organizations, moving ERP projects to cloud is like a war, owing to bad processes, poor government, and inattention towards organizational change management. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to unfold interesting discussions around legacy challenges as well as the synchronization of HR and IT teams. We would be addressing questions like what to do when cloud-based HCM do not work, what about traditional setups where years of data is kept on-prem systems. Let me introduce our esteemed panelists here. Let me welcome Priyavrata Shani, Chief Information Officer, DCM Shri Ram Industries Limited, Sarajit Jha, Startup Team, Adhir Main, CHRO, Lifestyle Business, Raymond, Brigam Tripathi, VP PeopleStrong, Vinit Chaturvedi, Strategic Lead, ISV Business, Amazon Internet Services Private Limited. Thank you all for joining, and to moderate the panel, let me hand it over to Sheena George, Partner Technology Consulting, EY. Before I hand it over to Sheena, I request you all to please present till the end of the session and put your questions over the chat window. Our speakers would try to respond to them at the end of today's session. With that, over to you, Sheena.
Thank you, Krishna. Good morning and warm welcome to everybody for this interesting session. We have an esteemed team of panelists who are going to debate on a very interesting topic about how we are going to migrate to cloud. In the boardrooms today, there is no other hot topic than now, especially during COVID, about how to improve employee experience. And more CIOs and CXOs are realizing that the best way to do it is to leverage expertise from outside and host their applications on cloud, leverage innovations that many of the partner organizations out there are doing to improve employee experience. So we're going to debate some interesting themes today. And one of those themes would be about what is required from a readiness perspective and explore the why. When should we explore a migration to cloud? What are some of those themes that give a business case for a case to migration to cloud? Because it may not make sense for everyone. So what are the reasons and the prompters that give rise to a business case for a migration to cloud? Then we will speak about why some cloud migrations we hear in the industry are very successful versus others, and what are the ingredients that go into a successful cloud migration. The third theme we will cover with our panelists is how some of these enterprises, large enterprises, are adopting cloud, and in a post-pandemic world, how are they keeping the adoption high, and what are some of the challenges they went through in terms of moving from their traditional ERPs. Then the fourth thing we will cover today is, having done the cloud migration, what can one expect? Does the story end with a migration? Or what is it that needs to be done on a continuing, ongoing basis to keep it live, relevant, and improve employee experience as we go along? And finally, we will touch upon the theme of data security and privacy on cloud, because that still remains one of the large concerns being discussed in certain industries more than others, about what happens about data, who owns data, and how to ensure against all the malware and cyber attacks that are going on in the industry. So with that background, let me quickly go over to our esteemed team of panelists whom Krishna introduced earlier today. And Mr. Adhir, may I call upon you first? At Raymond, you have been undergoing a significantly large amount of digital transformation, and you have focused and taken employee experience quite seriously. Would you be willing to share with us your journey of how you have gone about this digital transformation and how it impacted and made a difference at Raymond?
Share some of my learnings, so to speak, about why we migrated in the first place. It's not to speak that we were not on cloud. We are always on cloud with the legacy systems as well. But typically, what we are looking was for an enhanced employee experience, and that was a differentiator for us to actually migrate. Also, in the legacy system, we had issues in terms of the legacy system wasn't fully implemented even after 3-4 years because there are inherent challenges to the system, and therefore we could not actually leverage the entire system across the HR value chain space. When I say entire value chain, the employee life cycle, I mean. So therefore, it was felt necessary for us that we need to have an integrated play when we are looking at HCM digitized solution. And that's one of the key reasons why we actually started then looking at this particular aspect of how to actually migrate to a system which is nimble, fast, agile, and which is actually able to enhance the experience and take it to the next level. Because from an HR standpoint, if you do not have a complete suite of products or modules implemented, you will not get an experience both from the employee as well as from leadership standpoint to actually give a complete holistic picture of where are the issues lying within the employee data and what actually you can do along with their data. If you do not have that, that actually will be a kind of a half-baked solution. And that's one of the key reasons we thought of looking at this migration. Also, the challenge was that since some of the key modules from an HR standpoint weren't implemented, we were facing challenge in actually making sense of data. And I think that's one of the key reasons. Had we stuck to our legacy systems, probably the cost of ownership as well was a key concern for our size of the company that we are in. So that was one of the other key drivers. From a business case standpoint, employee experience, cost of ownership, also the agility and the UI and UX which the newer system brought to the table was very, very different because legacy systems are single instance products, and therefore any changes that you want to go will have to go through a global change, and it takes a lot of time for us for the changes to be implemented in anything that we want to actually configure. I think that's a key difference again, which we felt in the newer systems we will actually get to have these kind of changes. So legacy systems are like Titanic ship, right? They just don't turn very, very simply, easily. So it is like a Titanic. So there are inherent challenges in those systems. And that's the key reason also we felt that we need to probably get going and look at in the entire marketplace of what are the systems which are currently available. Having said that, we went through an entire process which spanned over about 8-9 months to actually narrow onto a particular system, which actually then was done with a lot of leadership buy-in, etc., both from the business end as well as HR and technology. The entire insertion of the system actually meant that the whole change management process to actually select the system, the entire leadership as well as our IS and IT teams were completely immersed into this shortlisting. And then we are presuming we found a solution to all our vexing problems. Having said that, the other problem which also is to come is the service levels in the legacy system were just not there in terms of quick comeback or quick turnaround times. The other thing was, you had partners, you had a maze of issues. You had partners to implement system. The principals never talked to us. So that's what we thought. But it has to be a nimble, agile, and an employee-focused system which will actually enhance the employee experience. Today, as I talk, whilst we are in the midst of implementation, having taken the decision, and if I reflect back, it's a decision we think is a good decision because I'm initially getting a lot of positive feedback from the employee base that we are serving because the UI and the UX that we are looking at is very enhanced and very, very user-friendly. And that's, I think, from an user standpoint, I would suggest is very key and important for us to actually give it and take the employee experience to the next level.
That was a good summary. Thank you. Thank you, Adir. So what I heard you say is enhance employee experience. You wanted a nimble and fast and agile system coming out of the Titanics and the dinosaurs previously, and which means faster service levels, better UI UX experience, and the rigorous due diligence which you underwent as a team in Raymond to decide on the right product with a focus on change management, which means that ensuring that that's the new system is actually something that can be adopted and can go far with you in a long journey, right? So thank you so much, Mr. Adar. At this point, I would like to call upon you, Mr. Mrigank. What do you think about what Mr. Adar just said, and how does it resonate around this discussion about cloud versus traditional ERP, right? And we've heard it innumerable times in the last decade, and it has recently picked up a lot of steam, especially in a post-COVID scenario. So as per you, why should organizations evaluate their interest in cloud? If you can just zoom in on the why question.
Sure. No, thanks a lot for that, Sheena. It's a very pertinent question as on date. To be honest, we've seen a complete upsurge of all types of organizations trying to move from legacy systems onto more nimble agile systems, as he himself mentioned a little while back. And I think the answer is really all around us. We're now living in the new normal, and the new normal is basically change. Every single day, every single week, every single month, you will find new things that keep on coming up. And companies are right now struggling to just meet the demands because nobody has ever been through this COVID situation before. Nobody knows how to react to this. Nobody's actually has a playbook to run by. But now, given the fact that I'll give you an example. Like there's a client of ours who's now a client, and they were running on a on-premise performance management system. Now, an on-premise performance management system, they're a 12,000 people organization. They could not run it because nobody was going to the company. Right? It's a problem. It's a basic problem. How do you ensure that performance management system, business cannot stop. Performance management systems cannot stop. So it was great that we were able to take them live in a week, and then they sort of went on with that. But instances such as these continue to happen right from the time when the lockdown started to the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And now what we're seeing is people are coming back into their offices. So demands are increasing every day. We're now working with some clients, and we're talking about hot desking. I mean, hot desking is an important application for most companies, that if I need to get to the office, how should I actually, am I allowed to go there? When should I be allowed to do that? All of these are very nimble and very, very quick things that need to happen. But most pertinently, I think the requirement is really that given the changes that are happening, you need to be able to be sure at the back of your head, and the organization needs to be sure that, look, our HR elements are taken care of. There is safety, there is security, processes can be followed, and there is still a lot of control in the hands of the organization. Now, as long as you're able to get that in an on-prem solution, I doubt that you'd move it, but companies aren't getting it. That's why I think right now is the best time to do it. The other factor also is that, clearly, given the market opening up as it has, and many companies moving towards HR technology, there are some great deals that are available in the market. In all honesty, cost is always an important factor, even more so in today's day and age. Legacy systems have always been a much more expensive proposition, and I think today, from a cost perspective, you'd be able to save a lot of cost. So I think on both those elements, one is the productivity, second is the overall process orientation, and third is, of course, the cost element. I think all of these are relevant, and that's why they should look at cloud today.
Thank you, Mrigank. That was very relevant. So what I heard you say is when the business case is really the ability to have the safety, security, and controls which you need while giving a better user experience, and ensuring that accessibility from anywhere, anytime, any place, right? And you're ensuring that an expert is taking care of that for you, and your daily operations are more run of the business, right? Thank you so much, Mrigank. That was very useful. At this point, Mr. Sarojit, I'd like to call upon you. And Tata Steel is a great organization. It's an inspiration for many other companies who look up to Tata Steel and watch what you do. And as the digital transformation leader there, you have spearheaded tons of technology transformation programs at Tata Steel. Could you tell us about some of your journey, specifically in the area of employee experience, as to how this journey you undertook this journey at Tata Steel, and what are some of the benefits and change that it brought about at Tata?
So thanks, Sheena. Good morning to all my fellow participants. Good morning to everybody listening it. Thank you for having me here. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words, Sheena, about Tata Steel. Yes, it's indeed a 113-year-old startup, as we like to see ourselves. And we are one of the few companies that has had, seen two pandemics. That's both an experience, a privilege, as well as a legacy we need to really carry. And coming to the topic at hand, the way we see it is that this journey started about 3 years ago when we started looking at three things. We said, what is the future of work? What is the future of the worker? And what is the future of the workplace? And we said, as far as the future of the workplace is concerned, it's going to be home shoring, remote shoring, everywhere shoring. And now we have come with the anytime, any place, anywhere compute, where it doesn't matter where you are, what device you have, you can work for Tata Steel. As far as the future of work is concerned, we realize that the future of work is unpredictable. We don't know what kind of work will be there 5 years from now. But we do know that, but we said that, look, we know that work can be characterized into what we call euphemistically our 4 C's and 4 D's. So whatever is 4D, dumb, dirty, dear, and dangerous, should go to machines. Whatever we call as our 4 C's, which is, care, curiosity, critical thinking, and collaboration, will always be where humans are. So for our workers, and let's say for a moment humans, and I'll come to that why we separate that. Please focus on developing the skill sets of the 4 C's. And what can the organization do so that the right person with the right tools is at the right place with the right motivation, doing the right job. Then, importantly, what is the future of the workers? So we see three kinds of workers who will be there, and this might find a little futuristic, but you have the humans who are already there. You have the machines, both AI and automation, which is working in Tata Steel in large measures. Again, anecdotally, I always say that, which is a more digital organization, Google or Tata Steel, and I have the greatest respect for Google. But even after 110 years of Tata Steel's existence, nobody has touched a ton of steel and lived to tell the tale. But organizations like Google, including our IT departments, are still using humans. So, it's just an interesting mind play to do. But just a thought for everyone to get sparked off that, look, we are in an industry which is very physical. The world is becoming phygital or digital, to borrow the terms of our chairman. And the second kind of worker that will come, third kind of worker, is going to be androids. I don't know how many cyborgs. I don't know how many of you are aware of Neil Harbisson. I think you should check Neil Harbisson out. And the other thing I would recommend is check out Dawn Cafe version beta. I had the luxury of meeting one of the founders on an aircraft, and I pestered him with a lot of questions, but really came out understanding that they run a cafe where none of the people have ever moved anything but their eyes, and they control robots from their eyes. Take that in a Japanese context, where you have these people who are getting old. What happens to people who can't care for themselves when they get old? You have people then being provided by tools where they can look after other people with those tools, serve other people food and all, which means they can definitely take care of themselves. And you're paying them minimum wages, so that their integrity and their kind of motivation is protected. So to sum three things: future of work, future of worker, future of the workplace. Look at it with all the things that Adhir and Mrigank rightly pointed out. For example, what Mrigank is saying is that the business case will always trump the model case, and the business case exists today. What Adhir in a way explained is that there is no vaccine for employee experience. It's a hard route, and you need to do the dirty yards. And what I'm adding to that is just have a very clear view of what that means to you in the context of your business and how you're going to land it. Over to you, Sheena. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarojit. I really liked your example of the 4 C's, the 4 D's, the future of work, worker, and workplace. I think it's absolutely relevant and very well put. Thank you for those examples as well, Mr. Sarojit. Over to you, Mr. Vineet. At Amazon, I think cloud is something that you have all been speaking about for more than a decade now. It's a day in the life at Amazon. So with your clientele, your exposure, and the experience, what do you think are the key indicators for organizational readiness for a migration of this kind? And why are some migrations more successful than others? In your view, what are some of the pitfalls and mistakes that one should look out for?
Sure. Thank you, Sheena. And it's a pleasure to have the front row seat to witness such interesting and passionate views. Some very relevant and very practical points are put forth by the co-panelists. And I specifically love the contrast between the Titan Gamlogi and being a 130-year-old startup. Wonderful. And I hope people watching this webinar will take back some of the points and append them to their own HR transformation journeys. Please be safe and thank you for attending. Now to your question, the answer is honestly very simple, right? If you are awake and aware, you are ready. So being awake is the first step. Remember, the more you snooze, chances are the more you will end up losing. So let's just assume that we all are awake and aware. How do we get ready? And honestly, the right question is not even how, but it's why. Once we know the why, it's easier to understand what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So why should one bother? Why should the CHROs, the folks attending this webinar should bother about these details? As you pointed out, Sheena, this is the bread and butter. This is what we do for a living. And in our interactions with customers across a broad spectrum, we learn the biggest challenge organizations face today is driving value from talent. It's not just about hiring the talent, but how do you drive that particular value that you hire the talent for? So let's be candid. HR will not have the bandwidth nor resources to achieve this goal single-handedly. Unless it frees itself from the manual repetitive task and sets itself for being a data-driven decision-making organization or business unit, which means it has to deliver smooth, continuous customer service and at the same time getting their bandwidth speed up. So it sort of is a fine balance that they have to play. To provide such stellar service, and I have no doubts about that, HR must and should employ technology with a sense of urgency. Some very simple, straightforward observations, and I'll put in three to concise it. Typical hire to retire tasks can be automated. Nearly 100%, close to 100% with current HR cloud technologies, the robotic process automation, ERP, and others, with minded very little process changes that are required from their side. Deployment of bots, the second one, can further help in handling repetitive tasks like offer letters, job descriptions, and many others with very limited investments required again to get these technologies in place and running. Now, once the HR is free from the top to manual processes that they are embroiled into today, they can spend more time into people analytics, and this is a growing field. It's very critical for understanding the delivery of value that talent brings to the table. Now, one last point, and I think this is I'm alluding towards we did sort of brought about this point in this discussion, is patchwork innovation will be hard to sustain, and the value it will drive would be fairly limited. So one should look at all-in transformation for your integrated HR tech to drive full value for the efforts that you will put in. So be aware and awake and know your why very, very clearly. I think that's the good start point. Now, coming back to your second question, Sheena, about why some cloud migrations have been successful over the others. Now, in my experience, the most critical element that separates a successful one from unsuccessful one, and I think most of us did touch upon it, we spoke about it a bit, is, and no surprise, are people. Now, let's take a step back for a moment and visualize how, and I love this exercise. How does personal transformation feels? Right? Right, it's often very, very energetic. I'm talking about something like training for a marathon, learning a new skill. For most people, including me, self-transformation projects occupy a very, very positive emotional space in a corner. But then there is another type of transformation that occupies a very different emotional space, and I think we need to work towards that. The transformation of organizations. If you are like most of people like me, when we hear words that organization is going and start a transformation, we're thinking, oh, layoffs, restructuring. This is very exhausting for employees, and mind it, these are the same people who are required to carry out the said transformation, who are getting emotionally distracted. So how have the successful ones fixed it? One common theme that has emerged out of all the experiences that we have seen, again, these are across the spectrum, they were trying to solve different problems. All of these organizations have a different vibe for themselves. But one common theme of the successful ones, they put people first. How does that? By narrating a higher purpose than just stating the financial and operations goal-based migration. Now, mind that we are talking about a very hard problem to crack, behavior. Now, behavior, you can still maneuver a financial and an operations goal with the leadership. But at the execution level, honestly, in our view, it does not drive those sort of behavior patterns. Enable people with capabilities that they need to succeed during the transformation and beyond. Install a culture of continuous learning. That is the key. Once the fear of unknown is lifted, and I know what's coming my way, and I'm prepared to take it on, I would be less exhausted, less fatigued, and I would be more excited to embrace the change and be for good, be part of it. Last one, the leaders who successfully transformed, and we saw the same theme emerging across the examples quoted by our panelists, right? A clear vision, a clear roadmap with milestones. But one again, very key important thing that brings people back is in order to capture the hearts and minds of people who are part of these transformations, we saw them being the leaders. Basically, saw them being inclusive and transparent by measuring and constantly celebrating and communicating these results. So these are my three quick sense to be successful. Bring people to the core. Everything that you do, people have to be the center of the transformation and not otherwise.
That was very beautifully put, Vineet. Thank you so much, and absolutely very relevant. I do HR tech transformations for a living as well, and what you said absolutely resonates. Put people at the center, narrate the higher purpose, enable them with the capabilities that they need to be part of the journey from a transformation perspective, inculcate the habit of continuous learning, and as leaders, drive that clear vision and roadmap, and win the hearts and minds of people. I think you couldn't have put it better, Vineet. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Priyabhatra, over to you. Could you share your journey with digital transformation at DCM, specifically in the area of employee experience? And it will be good to hear what your journey was and also some of the lessons learned, any surprises that you hit on or challenges. It will be good to hear, your experience in that area.
Okay, thank you. So first time, I think DCM Sriram is created a vertical to take in a big transformation and combining each vertical in one system. That's why the role of CI in the first time in DCM Sriram, although they are very old organization. So as far as the business transformation, the HR transformation is concerned, as a CIO, not that only you are responsible for technology, but now the CI role is changed. Now we are the business leader. So initially, definitely, yes, there is a mandate from an organization that you are going to change all the system, but at the same time, this is your responsibility. What are the things, what are the gaps which is relevant to the organization, and what are the business plan, and how this transformation happens along with the business plan and the technology roadmap. So that is the responsibility. That's the initial phase. I have discussed a lot with individual HR person of all the segments, and initially I have given all the functionality and modules of the hire to retire process to all the person. They evaluated on that part. We have finalized. We made a team, individual team on the corporate level, one team, and all the location level a separate team. And we invited all vendors and we conducted POC. And they evaluated POC in a better way. And believe me, as a technology person, yes, we have a lot more experience and we can put any ERP, but that is not my idea. I always prefer the choice of the user, because ultimately these are the person who is going to drive your software and the platform. So we have evaluated. Finally, we shortlisted 3 vendors, and now we are already almost completed POC. And we are going with the deep bang approach and combining all the modules. And already we presented the benefits and the decreasing the turnaround time and how it is efficiently working from home also. because now in this current situation, a lot of things to be taken from home. And also that must be on the longer roadmap, technology roadmap. So these are the things, combining all the things we have evaluated, and now we are going for a big bang approach. So not only this HR platform, also I'm transferring business, all the verticals. So my objective is putting everybody in the one platform, and that platform must be robust and technology enabled and has a good roadmap in the future. So combinedly, as a team, we are forwarding to achieve our success.
Thank you, Mr. Priyavadara. So your business case was how to bring everything to one integrated platform so that there is a seamless user experience, not only within HR but overall. And what the objective of putting that team together and doing those POCs and a strong due diligence or evaluation process was to ensure that there is a business buy-in upfront rather than more a tech play where we're pushing something down their throat.
Yes.
And when they are involved in the decision making and they are empowered, then the journey thereafter and the adoption thereafter is better. Thank you, Mr. Priyavadara. That was very relevant. Mr. Mrigank, I'm going to come back to you. This is what we have heard so far. So if the readiness is there and if an organization has bought into the cloud vision and they have found themselves ready to make the migration, and I think some of the panelists, including Mr. Priyavadara, referred to it briefly, what should be the criteria in terms of evaluating options or solutions out there?
Thank you, Sheena. I think that's a $1 million question really, because everybody has different criteria to sort of go through that. But I think it's a very safe bet to sort of just try and summarize what all has been already been said by the esteemed panelists, both Adib and Vineet and everybody, and Surajit as well. But I think the number one thing, at least in today's day and age, would be that is it one platform or is it like multiple platforms? And more importantly, from your own control perspective, like even if there are some partner modules that are embedded in there, who are you interacting with? Because at the end of the day, no product will necessarily have every single module that you potentially want, right? Because given COVID, it just makes that much sense financially, which is your number one issue. If you have one platform and one single vendor to talk to, you have economies of scale. Secondly, it makes sense functionally, right? Because all your modules are now being delivered with the similar user experience, and there is no sort of mismatch in various teams and so on and so forth. And the third is from a control perspective. How do you control your overall HR tech? You don't have to talk to 5 different vendors to figure out why is this not working, why is this integration not happening, why is the data flow not happening. All of that goes out of the window. So I think that's the first thing that one must look at when one is looking at the overall cloud thing. The second thing that I would say is really around 3 different ones. The first is the depth of the modules. And I'll explain why am I using these specific terms like depth of modules and stuff, right? First is the depth of modules. The second is overall your employee experience. And the third is your overall data readiness. These 3 things are, when you look at it, the first from a depth of module perspective is what will make every HR manager's life easier. This is what an HR manager would want. Look, things are moving, things are changing. Are you able to configure what I require? Are you able to do it moving forward? Are you going to keep on adding more things to me? So that's the real depth of the module. The second is the employee experience, which is really what me as an employee will actually experience, right? And if I as an employee am happy, then I will make sure that everybody else is happy as well. And the third is the data readiness part. Every CXO requires data. To control the business, to be able to sort of manage all that, you need to have data with you, right? What is the overall readiness of that product to be able to do that, right? Another very important point is really that about service orientation. It's very easy for somebody to come and bluster his way and sort of sell to you and then sort of walk away and stuff. But it's good if you were to speak with some of the other similar type of clients that they've actually gone to. Of course, there might be certain hiccups here and there during this thing, but on an overall basis, are they service oriented or are they saying, look, boss, this is what my product is, please now take it and just run with it? That's another important. The other element that I would mention definitely is future readiness. Every single vendor out there in the market today will be talking about machine learning. For example, you will see, I got this chatbot and I got that chatbot and I use machine learning in this manner and that manner. it's important for you to please test it out. Because we have personally experienced and clients have been very sorely disappointed. They went with a specific vendor on certain promises, and then they had to come back and said, look, it doesn't work over there. There is no ML. It's just basically, click and move forward. So that's something that should definitely be explored. And finally, I would say is the feature set. And there's a reason why I have actually put features at the absolute last. Of course, the features must match an organization's requirements. But the fact of the matter is, on a feature set comparison basis, one vendor will be maybe 19 today, might be 22 tomorrow. Another one might be 22 today, might be 19 tomorrow. It's really the orientation about how you're going to get into a relationship. How do you actually engage with a client? That I believe matters much more than that. So I'm going to take a pause over there. And the final thing that I want to say is that be open. HR is not the only solution out there in the market, right? There'll be multiple systems that the HR system needs to interact with. There might be CRM systems, there might be sales systems, there might be merchandising systems, there might be finance systems. It needs to be open enough to be able to integrate with them in whatever manner. So those are broadly the areas that I would recommend anybody who's looking at evaluating any type of an HR tech. Go through this evaluation, and I'm sure that it'll be a good decision. Over to you, Hina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrigank. So what I hear you say is streamlining the number of vendors, products out there so that you are managing something that you can put your arms around, not running hither-thither, trying to see where is the broken chain, right, and whom to call. Next is the depth of the modules. And here I think you referred to a little later. Everybody is not going to have everything 100%. Go into it thinking that it's a long-term relationship. You'll be growing along with that vendor, and your processes can change. The environment out there can change. Be open to innovating and moving as you go along. You may not have everything on day one. And most of these vendors are doing a lot of innovation anyway. The third aspect you said is focus on employee experience. I think Mr. Adir said that UI, UX, and what is it that is going to transform from an employee perspective, right? The data readiness, very, very important point, right? So many implementations have gone wrong because of data. And I think how that vendor is able to partner with you in that journey is absolutely key. And service orientation, I think that also was referred to Mr. Adir earlier. Future readiness from an innovation standpoint. The relationship with that vendor and how open it is to integrate, because we have to sign up for the fact that you will have to integrate with multiple things, and there's that open source in terms of integrating and plug and play with anything is going to be absolutely crucial. That's very useful. Thank you.
Just one other point though, and this is of course very, very critical, is of course the security angle of it. I mean, clearly, we would not make it beyond Mrs. Surajit at all unless until we are 100% secure. So yeah, security is a very, very critical element, and I think employee data is the fulcrum of all data that exists. If that goes out, then there's a big problem.
Absolutely, Mrigank, and more relevant. No time like now for that to be more relevant than all the stories that you hear about malware attacks and everything. Mr. Vineet, can I pull you in here and explain to us? So, having spoken about migration, some of the experiences, we spoke about readiness, we spoke about how we go about evaluating them. What should we sign up in terms of key phases for a migration? What are the key phases, and when does it start? When do you say a transformation ends? And what is it? Is it like a couple of months? Is it for years? Because we hear all sorts of things in the market, right? So what are your views, Vineet?
Yeah, so Sheena, you hear all sort of things because there are all sort of organizations, all sort of whys and all sort of people there and trying to solve all sort of problems with all sort of solutions, right? So there always be all sort of things. The world is a hybrid place and it will continue to be. Now, I want to avoid being very prescriptive by suggesting, 4 easy steps to migrate kind of an approach. Honestly, one can go to the web, plenty is available to chew on. I want to narrate this with a practical, real example, and I'll not go far. It's Amazon's own story of migrating off legacy on-prem database to a purpose-built database on cloud. Now, I know that it's not in quintessential HR transformation example, but you will find common themes emerging out of it that hopefully would be very beneficial for attendees who are tuned to this webinar. Now, it was a successful migration, and the reason this very complex migration was a success was because Amazon answered the why early on in the process. Amazon realized its legacy database were not designed to scale beyond certain capacity limits, and if they did not act on the change now, it would have directly impacted the customer performance, both in terms of, and I think most of the people alluded towards it, the user experience, the holy grail today, and increased cost, as Milan pointed out as well. And this was the big why. Once that got answered, Amazon laid down clear what, that is the design principles or the guardrails, if you will, within which the migration needs to take place. So I will quickly point out three important ones or critical ones that really made an impact that Amazon did. Service availability. This needs to be 100%. The systems cannot go down because of migration. The customers cannot suffer. Mind it, this whole migration exercise has been undertaken because to give better performance to the customer. So you cannot avoid, you cannot have a scenario of a service unavailability. You need to plan for it. You need to have backdoors. You need to have rollback mechanisms. Data availability. All data needs to be available and consistent at all times. And there was no question of any data loss. And this goes to specifically organizations which are listed, which are under SOX compliance and the different sort of compliance within different countries. Third, very, very critical one, and I think this is a straw that breaks the camel's back. And as you rightly pointed out, Sheena, some you see migrating in 2 months, some you see 2 years. And earlier, we the legacy system sort of continued for a while, and then they decided to go in for a more nimble and agile platform. Is the migration time to complete define the time frame with limited or no downtime? I mean, this was the key to success: service availability, data availability, and migration time, very clearly defined. Now, knowing the why and the what, the how was straightforward execution. Basically, Amazon did the following: embraced innovation. So basically, they went for the right tools for the right job rather than one size fit all. And this is where I would allude to Renan, where he said that you need to keep your systems open. It's a world where plug and play is the name of the game. And so basically, we went for a purposeful, purpose-built databases that were fit for purpose and not trying to fit in every single problem to be solved by a single silver bullet. Second very important one, this is what I alluded to in the initial first conversation as well, is Amazon really managed the talent well. That's basically coming to brass tacks is training and resourcing. Now, mind that silence can be either protest or consent, but in our experience, most of the times it's fear, and no one performs optimally under fear. So it was critical to eliminate it early on. Amazon did a fantastic job in communicating the larger purpose of the activity, properly laying down the elaborate training schedules to eliminate the fear of unknown and redundancy. Will I be valuable to the organization? What happens to the years of work that I've accumulated doing the older thing? So database talent that honestly was the soul of the organization started getting trained on new open technology, right? More open tech and the new tech that was coming into the system. And again, one of the clear winners in management talent was resourcing, right? Everybody is constrained with bandwidth these days. It's very critical and this is what they did upfront setup of central teams to coordinate with different views, different teams, and the likes of Amazon Prime and stuff. And measure. What gets measured gets delivered. We all know that, right? So constantly measuring, communicating, and very, very important to our human ethos and pathos, celebrating the impact migration was creating. So it was transparent and it was very visible to the people who were part of the journey. So my message to the audience watching this is, first, get out of the state of denial and be aware and open. Once you are, answer the most important question. That's the second one, why. Third, construct an overarching what. Define your guardrails within which you want to operate this migration, your non-negotiable boundaries that you cannot live with. Lastly, for example, as others alluded, security, right? Security has to be day zero. Whatever implementations you do, it has to be day zero. It has to be the first thing that you solve. It has to get implemented before other constraints come in. So define your boundaries or non-negotiable boundaries. Lastly, meticulously lay down the how, the execution. And while, as I said, I'm a great fan of it, you do all that always and always. And I cannot stress this more enough. Keep people at the center of this transformation.
Thank you, Vineet. I like what you said about purpose-driven cloud migration. So the putting in the why, the what, and everything that keeping people at the center are the phases which will take you through a successful migration. Thank you so much, Vineet. Over to you, Mr. Adar. I'm going to pull you again. Continuing from what Ms. Vineet said, so there are these phases and you go to it and you put in those guardrails and the right steps to go there. But what happens after a cloud migration? What does one expect? Is your migration story over there on the day you go live? How do you establish workflows that puts your processes under cruise control from there on?
So I think it's first things first. I think it's never going to be day zero migration that happens when we have transformation go. It's an ongoing process. I think also let me slightly step back and explain to you earlier, which I kind of missed out at the point. I think the newer system has actually helped us to move from a system of records approach to a system of engagement. I think that's where, that engagement thing which comes in. And I think that engagement thing is an ongoing piece. So I would allude to the fact that day zero migration, or when you click the button and day zero, lo and behold, you have typically the Employee Central and all the modules going live, it's all over. The important point is how do you, as an organization and also as partners whom we are working with, make sure that the transition is effective and smooth, so that the adoption rate, and that's the key here, because the adoption rate is going to be critical for any systems that we are actually migrating, and especially more so for HR, where your employee adaptability rate is as high as 70-80%. If it is there, then we can say that the transition is smoother, and it is not going to happen on day zero, mind you. I think we've been with the legacy system for 3 years, and we were just touching about 70% of the new system. We are confident because we're kind of planning the entire work that has gone into doing the POC with the partner, etc. Tells us a story that we will be there in a 6-7 months time frame. But I'm sure it is not going to be a legacy system of 2 years, and we are still struggling with those adoption, etc. But typically, it will be a journey, so to speak, and then I think even the partners will bring newer dimensions of technology that we have to incorporate, etc. We are also looking at different aspects of how do I record my attendance and many other things like geofencing. Many things are actually being looked at. So there are newer technologies which we are looking with a newer partner. So which will actually help us to say that once this goes live in another 3, 4, 6 months time frame, beyond that, if I were to ask you, if you were to ask me what is success rate for you, I think a year down the line, if I'm confidently going to come back to you, Sheila, and tell you that my adoption rate for the technology has moved from a low of 50 or 40% to 60, 70, 80, 90%. And that's where I think the proof of the pudding is. And I'm confident because of the UI, UX that is inbuilt in the newer systems, people will take a switch to water, so to speak. And I think that's the proof of the pudding. And when you actually develop solutions with the partner, and the partner comes and recommends to you, these are the capabilities which are possible. And we then start integrating on the go. And when you're actually doing the transformation, that's the point when you really see the differences that come in play with the service levels of partners, etc. I think in earlier cases, my story has been that we have never met principals and partners for ages together. And when there was a problem, you had to go through a SI part, system integrator, then to the final company, and many things. So that is legacy for you. Right? And that's one of the big changes we will see. And therefore, I'm confident that adoption of such nimble and fast-forwarded systems will be much more easier and much more swifter than I could envisage. But it is never to say that adoption is, or the system, if it goes live with a particular set of modules, we don't need to say that we have kind of transformed. Also, from a legacy standpoint for us also, we are a combination of a nimble, fast-forwarded organization and our own legacy system. So we have our own internal challenges we have to adapt to that particular aspect. Having said that, if we are able to marry what technology offers, we are able to actually overcome our own internal challenges from a legacy standpoint. We will be there in terms of a system and a process which will be employee friendly, which will actually enhance and kind of take the employee experience to the next level. And truly, I would suggest that we will then be talking about systems of engagement as opposed to systems of records. So that's the kind of way which I would suggest would happen over a period of time. But the key metric here will be the adoption rate and people actually coming forth and talking about the user friendliness of the system. It's not HR for them, HR kind of browbeat saying that, no, this is a system which is user friendly. But I think if we run a kind of an employee survey and they find that the user friendliness and the entire information for managers, for leaders is up there at the fingertips at a click of a button, then I would say that the system really has helped me so much. And I think we are confident about what we have seen so far. In fact, my one thing to note is that we actually implemented the go live in 18 flat days, which would have been unheard in my previous system, which is a phenomenal both from the partner side and also our own teams within Raymond, the tech team and the HR team, and of course, a lot of support given by the partners. So 18 days is a phenomenal record. I've never seen this happening in my several years of being in HR and working with different systems of technology in HR to actually go live in 18 plant days. So I think this is what I think is important for us.
Congratulations, Mr. Rajat, for phenomenal 18 days go live. I think that's a challenge. People are talking months and years. So that's good. So you've been able to move from system of record to system of engagement, and your view of success is the high adoption rate. And you also mentioned that the transformation is not over on the day you've gone live. It's a continuous journey, and we have to evolve as we go along. That's useful. I'll take a pause here. Krishna, are there any questions from our audience which we should take at this time? We are at down to the last 8 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sheena, and thank you all the panelists for their insights. We have got a couple of questions here. So here's the first one. What are the checklist mistakes HR and IT team should be aware of when making this transition? What are the defining stages for success? So if anybody can respond to that.
Maybe Mr. Sarajit, you can take that question, and then Mrigank, you can come in after that.
Sure. So I think that's a very good question. In my view, two things. In anything that you're doing, first you should define where to play, how to win, and do I have a scorecard? So taking that forward, where to play is the point of departure and the point of arrival should be very clear, both in terms of the business rules and logic, which is what do you do, what do you cover, in terms of the IT rules and logic, and of course, what we like to call as the business technology roadmap. Typically, if you don't have a target architecture with all the good things which are defined, to take Priyabrata's point that does it have a platformatization end, which is reduce the number of apps and reduce the number of, to take Mrigan's point, are we making too many stitches because IT is like porcelain? You can always stitch it together. The more stitches you make, they will show. To take the point from Adhir, that will it give me the cycle time reduction that is required from, like when we ran we today measure infra provisioning in minutes. I can, for example, sitting here and I'm the least IT friendly guy in my whole department, I can provision a VM in no time. It takes us less than 12 minutes to do so. So earlier it used to take us 9 to 12 hours on prem. So against those. Now on coming to how to win, I think in my view, what is very important is, Adi was talking and we were at length talking about what, and Priyabrata also mentioned that involve the user. Don't, impose decisions on them. But I think the IT department, in my experience, has to do one thing, which is once we have decided what the features and functions and benefits are, which should be owned by the HR department on behalf of everybody in the company, they should clearly define that unless a product is 85% fit, don't touch it. And if it is 85% fit, then the balance 15% should be met by one of the three. One, either it should be configured. Two, it should come in the product roadmap of the vendor that you've finally selected. Or three, just forego it, because it is that 3% which will lead to 80% of the complexity. Unless this decision is understood, you will be ending up building a lot of tech debt and ending up paying my friends, the systems integrators. I am very clear now, if the time frame today is more than 3 months for anything, And if the system integrator component is more than 20%, it's just a wrong choice we are making. So I'll just stop here, and I have some very strong views on that, but we will keep it at that. Thank you.
No, thank you, Sarojit. I think that was a very, very straightforward metric to measure anything by, and frankly, I'll try to sort of implement that even internally here at PeopleStrong, just to make sure that all our discussions with our clients are exactly along the same lines. That's great. I think on the HR side of it, there are two things that there are actually just two things that I would actually recommend. One is, of course, that whole process of how do you select and so on and so forth. We're already past that. But for success to actually happen, the biggest issue that I have seen in any implementation is really how is the team structured? Is there a vendor team and is there a client team, or is it one project team which is actually going to implement? And in my mind, I have, whenever I speak with my clients, I always tell them that please, treat the PeopleStrong folks who are going to be implementing as your team, and please treat your team also as your team. So that if something is going wrong, then in the steering committee meeting where I would be sitting along with the CHRO, then the discussion is not that, why is PeopleStrong doing this or why is the ex-client doing this? It's about why is this team not able to come together? The minute that switch happens, magic happens. Because otherwise there's always that sort of invisible wall between two lines. And that is one thing that I would do. Second thing that I will definitely state is the data readiness. Please be very sure about your data, because otherwise, garbage in will be garbage out. And the third thing that I would recommend very, very importantly is please appreciate that when you're implementing a cloud-based new age agile solution, which is actually along the lines of higher engagement and better adaptability and stuff, there will be certain things that you will have to let go of, which were actually prevalent as a bad practice in maybe your earlier system. It is now the time to actually say, look, we're going to just let this policy go, and we're going to change this policy to become a better policy. A lot of times what we've seen is that, as implementation managers, we tend to resist that. Boss, this is what has been with us for the past 10 years and 5 years, and we want to continue with this. Then there is really no point in changing your system. Because if you're doing just digitization from one system to the other, then it's the same damn thing. There's no point in doing it. But if you can get a better way of doing the same thing, and there are lots of ways in which it can be better, please be acceptable to that fact. And this is really to the leadership or the steering committee level to state that, look, when we are going in there, we do want to be amiable to the fact that there will be changes. And unless until there aren't changes, we're not doing something right. And a lot of our clients have actually benefited immensely from this. Those are the three key points that I would like to state. Thank you. Over to you, Sheena.
Thank you, Mrigank and Mr. Sarojit. So, Mr. Sarojit, you've stressed on the ROI point and being open to change where required, if for the 15% which the product does not meet. And Mrigank, you stressed on teaming and data readiness. Thank you so much for that. Over to you, Krishna. What's our next question?
Yeah, key stakeholder buy-in is very important for such large migrations. Like whenever we talk about migrations, how can one go about making a case for it internally?
Mr. Priyabhatra, do you want to take that? I think you briefly referred to that in your discourse as well. And then, Vineet, you can chime in with a few words after Mr. Priyabhatra.
Okay. So see, moving from a existing platform to new platform, it's definitely involvement of the lots of risks. And to mitigate risks, you have to do your homework properly. And to do the homework properly, definitely you have to align with all the team members who are the concerned person who will going to drive this transformation. And don't go with if it is a first time you are going from transformation from one platform to other platform, don't go with a big-bang approach if you're not sufficient knowledge or business roadmap on that part. But you go with a phase-wise manner. You define all your milestones along with detailed activities and present to all the stakeholders, and even you go up to the user level. And they should understand that these are the things where they are going to contribute or they are going to benefit on that part. And definitely you make a difference between your old system to new system. Because see, ultimately, what are the things you are doing and converting that to the decision, it's not a digital transformation. If you are going to add value to your every vertical, every business, that is the value addition to the organization. So as far as me is concerned, I always prefer to the practical approach. Even I am not going to consider 80-20 approach. I am telling you. Nowadays, people are very reluctant. If a single mistake, they can highlight everything. Maybe in Tata Steel, they are very disciplined way of working, but other manufacturing is very difficult to achieve all the things. So that's why I am trying to go with the 100%. Yes, always you can't get 100%. Definitely you will get 100% after phase-wise implementation. That's why phase-wise implementation, POC, and the declaration of total scope and finally the scope. These are the big things, I think, important things to be done before migration. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Sharingli. Sheena, we have got another question here. What question should be asked to a potential vendor? So I think if Adhir can respond to that.
You're on mute, Adhir.
Repeat the question. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I'll just repeat the question. The question goes, what questions should be asked to a potential vendor?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think first of all, potential vendor, when we shortlist the vendor, I think it has to make sure that being one of the critical ingredient is to help them understand what is the kind of thing that we're looking at in terms of the process systems, and also keeping employee as the center of our activity. Does the system actually help to migrate the experience of employee from an UI UX standpoint to the next level? Also, is there security inbuilt in terms of whatever functionality that we have? Also, in our own case, we were very sure that we wanted to actually look at GDPR compliance because we had certain operations globally as well. So that was the third point we thought about. And I think the other question is very important, is to assess an assessment done about their own service levels, because many people in legacy or otherwise promise a lot about service levels and do not deliver. I think that's very important. How easy it is to customize, how is it to actually get incorporation of newer technologies. So these are the important questions that the HR folks along with the IT folks need to actually address and help partner understand before we finalize one. But the biggest challenge would be if the system is not going to be very employee friendly and employee centric. I think no matter whatever gizmos the technology gets to the table, we are not going to be very successful in employee transition, the transition and transformation of HR technology, so to speak. So therefore, having employee at the center of what are the capabilities the system brings together, maybe be chats, maybe chatbots and many other things. But I think let's not get lured by the gizmos that the system promises, but do a POC, thorough POC before we actually look at which vendors are proper, etc. Also, does it actually in the long run help to drive the HR strategy to the next level? I mean, let's take for an example. Does the system even have today in their roadmap as a product offering in terms of taking your analytics from a diagnostic level today to a predictive and a prescriptive level? It may not be, as Sarajit alluded to, that it may not be currently at the part of the offering, but does it actually have in its roadmap as one of the offerings? So I think, does that really help my HR strategy to be, the technology helps me actually to actually get the HR strategy to the next level? Will it help me to enable my business processes? Will it help me to help the business leads and business managers and business leaders to use it for their own advantage? So therefore, actually looking at systems which actually enable, and it does not help the managers and leaders in business to depend on HR for any information. Will it actually help me drive the data to the next level, to take it to the managers and leaders of business so they can actually serve the system and get the information what is required, rather than HR always coming to play and try and helping them to give data, etc. So that's the next level evolution I would suggest. That does it provide for my CEO, for example, a cockpit kind of approach on all people analytics that we're looking at, right from hiring to retiring. So it is at a click of a button that this is a promise. And if it's not there as a product offering today, is it at least there as a part of the roadmap which is very, very important for us to understand. I think these are some of the issues which I think are important for us to look at when you shortlist a vendor, so to speak.
Thanks for that. Okay, Sheena, so we have another question. This is the last question from the audience. Are there certain industries where cloud-based HCM do not work? What about traditional setups where years of data is kept on-prem systems?
Interesting question, Krishna. Maybe Vineet and Mrigank, you want to take this. Vineet, you can come in first, and then Mrigank can take over.
Yeah. So as I said, I mean, there is no one-size-fits-all approach these days. With the plethora of options and solutions availability that we have. So what you need to actually do is you need to look at the purposeful build solution for yourself. So if there is a problem statement, you need to ensure that you're chasing a solution, not a technology. Today, the problem has been that people are chasing technologies without understanding the fit and wherewithal within the organization's confines and what the requirements are. So one is don't chase technology, and I think somebody mentioned this as well. Don't change the latest and the greatest bot that's available in the market. Look at what the organization actually needs, the need of the hour, and then you will find your answer whether your organization, what you're asking for, what kind of solutions are available. Probably you're looking at the wrong direction, hence not getting the answer. Second, on the data, there is no silver bullet to it. Data is a complex and a messier problem, right? I mean, the more messier and complex it becomes, the more carefully it needs to be treated. Although a great fan of this, but you can't just say leap and the net will appear. It will not happen with the case of data. You need to ensure that the data is well looked at. You need to ensure that you have a proper strategy, you have proper guardrails in terms of timelines, in terms of the security measures around the data, in terms of what data needs to be purged, what data needs to be cleansed up. Because mind it, like an iceberg, there's a whole lot of activities and exercise that goes behind the curtain and getting the data prepared for you to finally, jump over. It's like Olympics, right? Where you run a 6-second race, but you take 6 years to win that race. People only see that 6 seconds; they don't see the 6 years behind it. So very, very important to ensure that you sit on the data. And again, as I said, getting away from the state of denial. Acceptance that yes, you have a data problem. Yes, there is a complex set of data that you have. There's years of bundles that you have, layers and layers that you have created. Ensure that you spend time and effort in cleaning that up before you start chasing technology.
Yeah, I think from a pure industry vertical perspective, I have yet to come across an industry vertical where it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Where cloud technology or HR technology in the cloud doesn't work. However, having said that, I'm pretty sure that there would be, for example, I don't know, maybe the government defense could be one of them where they say, look, put it into my private cloud and stuff like that. But to be honest, that seems to be the only extreme when we couldn't work. But even then, it's like saying that, look, you already have the bank over there. You want to put it in your house. You choose which one do you want to go. We ourselves currently serve about 16 verticals, and we have. Yeah, so I don't think that I have yet come across any vertical where an HR technology cannot work. Yes, the extent of usability and the extent of penetration and the extent of the processes that are being utilized in that vertical could vary. There could be certain verticals wherein the processes and systems aren't very sophisticated and don't need to be. But on the other hand, there could be verticals which are like very, very sophisticated and they have everything absolutely perfectly done and stuff like that. But that's the broad spectrum of it. But today, I don't think there is any place where we can say, look, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Krishna?
No, I think we can wrap the session here and the panelists can share their final word for today's session. So, Sheena, if you can just drive this.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Krishna. Will do. So we've come to the end of the session, and I think this has been a great learning experience for me. Amazing to listen to some of the stories that have come in from Raymond, DCM, Tata Steel, and Amazon. This was a superb time spent, this hour spent, and I hope the audience agrees as well. What we'll do is we'll do a quick round of last words from each panelist, and we will start with you, Mr. Priyabhadra.
Yeah, transformation is always beautiful, but it's required a team effort. And at the same time, your internal team as well as your external team, like your implementation partner, we are referring as a partner now. That's why it's very much important to hand-holding with everybody, and then you can achieve success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priyabhadra. Mr. Sarojit, do you want to come in?
So I was listening to Vineet, and I'll formulate what Vineet was trying to say for a long time. So we have protective, personal protective equipment for all our employees. I think from Vineet, I learned that we need a PPE, which is purpose, passion, and ethics for whatever transformation you want to do. The second little comment is we as a company don't believe in digital transformation. We believe in business transformation in the digital era. So similarly, it's not cloud transformation. It is the employee experience transformation in a digital era. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarojit. Very beautifully put. Mr. Aditya, do you want to come in next?
What alluded to. I think a couple of experiences I just want to share very quickly. I think we want to drive HR transformation, which is what Sarojit is also saying. It's not tech transformation. I think if you are actually on the goal of transforming the HR and thereby adding value across the value chain of the HR, that's the transformation that we should be looking at. The technology and other systems, processes are enablers for us to actually take it to the next level. But if you don't have a landscape of migrating and looking at HR transformation as a holistic process, I think your technology transformation will not be that much more successful. I think that therefore the plan and the end game should be how do I transform my HR, and within the context of the business transformation, it will actually add value to my employees, take my employee experience to the next level with the systems of engagement, etc. And therefore, that's the kind of roadmap we should have of transformation. The transformation of HR should drive the systems transformation, not the other way around.
Absolutely. Thank you for underlining that, Mr. Aditya. Over to you, Vineet. Your turn.
Yeah, what I want to end with is technology is a gift of God, and honestly, after the gift of life, it's perhaps the greatest of God's gift. Use it wisely. The time is now. Stay blessed. Stay safe.
Thank you, Vineet. And last but not the least, Mrigank.
No, thank you all. I don't have much to say except for the fact that I'm sure that there are lots of transformations that are going to happen as we move along this journey of recovery from the COVID thing. Overall, we must evaluate and from an overall successful perspective, please evaluate in depth, partner for the long term, don't be short-sighted, and work as true partners rather than as vendor and client. And I'm sure that there'll be lots of success and transformation that'll happen. Again, please do stay safe. These are very trying times and changing times, so hopefully everybody will stay safe. All the best.
Thank you, Mrigank. Over to you, Krishna, to call curtain.
Yeah, thank you, Sheena, and all the panelists for their insights. So we are closing today's session with some golden words like technology is good, and then
Krishna, we lost you.
Mr. Priyabhadra, I think you need to unmute. You need to mute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for any feedback or query, please write to me at krishna.mukherjee@timesgroup.com. Thank you, panelists, for joining us, and thank you everyone for appreciate your time for joining, and thank you once again for joining the session powered by AISPL and People. Goodbye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.